Welcome to a special edition of our CISO Connections webinar. Today we're going to look at predictions for 2024 from 5 of our global CISOs, covering all the regions within Checkpoint. 2023 has seen an increased surge again in ransomware attacks, phishing attacks, and we expect to see much more in 2024. But of course, we're keen to see what the global CISOs share as their predictions. As always, please put any comments or any questions in the Q&A. And now on to our first prediction.
Hello everyone, my name is Egaling, part of Checkpoint's global CISO team, and my prediction for the year 2024 is to do with the consolidation of technical controls that will, from my understanding, become a priority in information security. The hypothesis that I represent today is that in reducing the number of controls, it will automatically lead to an increased resilience in cybersecurity in principle. And what I mean by that is we have seen a sort of a breeding grounds for complexity with big trade shows that we have seen globally, one being RSA conference this year, and another one being this German equivalent of it called ITSA. And while RSA conference this year has a count of 600 individual vendors that are showcasing technologies, the year before was just about 400. And for ITSA this year, it has been 700, and the year before that, it was just 450 to 500, that the more vendors are entering the information security arena, the more complex it gets, and with more complexity becomes the burden on the clients become bigger and become unmanageable. So going back to the hypothesis where I said, if we're cutting back on the amount of technical controls that will have a positive impact on InfoSec, that would be one potential reason why that is. Also considering that with 600 plus individual vendors coming to RSA this year to showcase the technologies and the respective amount and more doing the same thing in Germany, the people who are deciding on information security, the roadmap, the strategy, and so on, they just get overwhelmed. So they have really two options to take it from here. The one is they stick with what they have, and the second one is they just get smart about the technology decisions, and this then calls obviously for consolidations. Now, what we're seeing is that most organizations use too many cybersecurity tools. There are statistics coming from all sorts of the universe. What we have seen in the recent years, and this is also in line with the findings that we have from the Checkpoint side, is that a typical SMB business, or the smallest among us, they have about 20 individual technical controls that they use for their information security. The bigger organization that sits in the mid-size organization, and that is all from a European perspective, obviously, there are up to 60 individual technical controls. And then the large enterprises and the multinationals, they can go up to 100 and even more. Now, reflecting on those numbers, knowing that SMBs are typically small organizations with a relatively small footprint in the information security team size, having to manage 20 individual technologies is already a burden. So decomplexing and cutting back on the amount is already a good thing for them. For mid-size, obviously, the amount of teams usually increase a little bit, but not necessarily dramatic. Reducing on the amount of technical controls that they have to manage will also be a potential good thing for managing it in a better and a reasonable fashion. And then for multinationals, they feel the talent shortage the most because they have most dispersed. They are the most dispersed organization out there, usually geographically dispersed. They have to deal with all sorts of compliance regulations and all of this. If they have an opportunity to cut down the amount of the technical controls to a more reasonable level, that will obviously benefit them, especially because we're now living in a time where economics factor into the equation. So finding an intelligent way to harmonize the technical control base and cutting back on the amount is also perceived as a, economically speaking, good thing. Now, the obvious information security imbalance is, and this is something where artificial intelligence could potentially come to the rescue, especially when it comes to automating specific tasks, is the imbalance is that we have, according to a Gartner information that is linked in these slides, we have about 4 million individual talent shortage counts globally, which individual countries reflect and echo equally well. On the other side, we have, and this is an interesting one, we have about 14% of budget increase for information security spending this year over the last one. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is while budgets are increasing for information security, the burden on people lifts, right? You cannot do the same thing and more of it with the same amount of people or less. So this imbalance becomes even more and more worse the further we increase the budget and fall short on staff. So the consolidation piece here will come handy because you have technical controls that you can consume from individual pieces. That would be the piecemeal approach. That's, by the way, the reason why we have so much complexity. Or you can shift towards a more platform-centric approach where individual technical capabilities come from within the dedicated platform that can be used across the organization. And that individual platform with the individual capabilities is then much easier to handle, easier to manage, and requires much less of a burden on the staff that exists to run and maintain the organization. So in following this suggestion of taking a platform approach over individual piecemeal, this will very likely decomplex the situation for an organization, take the burden off the staff that exists in running information security, and hopefully give everyone a very relaxed 2024. This closes my prediction for the year. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone having a good time. Good luck, everyone, and fingers crossed.
Thank you, Marco, whose prediction was talking about the consolidation of our security controls being given a greater focus to increase that much needed business and cyber resilience. Now on to our next prediction.
My name is Vivek Gulapalli. I'm the Global CISO for APAC. And this is my prediction for 2024. The board and the CEOs will demand a high degree of confidence in cybersecurity and expect businesses to continue before a cyber attack, during a cyber attack, and after a cyber attack. Having spoken to close to 300 board members, chairmen, the CEOs, and CISOs, the message is quite clear. Cybersecurity seems like a bottomless pit for investment dollars as well as for resources, and they are not seeing the returns that they expect. The world has become hyper interconnected with digital, whereas cybersecurity still looked in isolation. The struggles with cybersecurity continue, where the intentions for protecting an organization is immense, but the outcomes are not yet the same. The cybersecurity problem still continues as the approach taken to cybersecurity is still a banded approach where controls are introduced patchwork after patchwork. Cybersecurity is tending to become increasingly complex as organizations adapt and accelerate their digital transformation, and so do the threat actors. The talent shortage is immense. The security vendors are still seen as security vendors, but not seen as security business partners. Organizations are not agile enough to adapt to a rapidly changing threat landscape and actors. And this is definitely demonstrated by the cybercrime dollars. If you look at 2024, the expectations of the cybercrime is around 9.2 billion. That's almost 20% increase than 2023. If you look at Asia Pac, from the impact to the ports, all the way from Tokyo to Australia, to banking, to healthcare, to the common man that's suffering the impact of cybercrime and cyber fraud and resulting in their money and the services being extremely disrupted. Governments across the board have been extremely concerned that the boards are more and more being asked to ensure that they can demonstrate to the investors as well as to the regulators that their companies that they manage are very well run. Thus, my ask for CISOs in 2024 is that they need to demonstrate a high degree of confidence about their cybersecurity program to the board that the business can ultimately continue uninterrupted before, during, and after a cyber attack. With that, happy 2024.
Thank you, Vivek. Vivek's predictions talking about the board requiring much higher levels of confidence in cyber resilience, and that's what they expect from the governance of our CISOs reporting into that board level. And now on to our next prediction.
My name is Johnny Fishburne. I'm Checkpoint Global CISO. Today, we will discuss my prediction for 2024. Well, surprisingly, it's going to be ransomware. So ransomware attacks will continue to increase by an extensive percentage while continue impacting by millions of dollars organizations of all sizes. So although enterprises are adopting a lot of security tools, which obviously it's not enough because they do not talk with each other, we have also seen cases that SMBs and midsize are being more attacked in the last year because for hacking groups, this represents the low-hanging fruit. Many security and IT professionals claim that or think that this will not happen to them. Of course, this is wrong because usually when it happens, it's usually too late. So in the last few years, we have seen the extortion levels of ransomware attacks being elevated to not just triple, even to getting into the level that the bad guys will report customers of us to be part of this negotiation. They will put pressure on the customer as a victim. This is one side, and we have seen a case that the Security Exchange Commission in the US was reported about an ongoing case, which this put, of course, a lot of pressure on the victim. The next topic, we see new technologies like AI being born or familiar with all of us in the beginning of 2023, and this is also leveraged by the bad guys. Of course, the good guys, which are the defensors, can develop faster responses or accelerate and automate admin work and do more effective SOC work. But on the other hand, we see a variation of attacks leveraging AI to bypass the regular preventions, and this is a big problem. Also, they create a flood of fake identities, which is going to be challenging. And again, we do not see a decrease on numbers. Said that, it's very important to have what we call an holistic approach, not just a single solution for anti-ransomware, but to build a strategy platform around it. So we will touch a few examples. We will start with Harmony user and device security. So most of ransomware attacks arrive either by email or by browser downloads. These are two popular cases that we provide email security or secure browsing. On the third chance, we see communication channels like WhatsApp or social media, links and files being shared by those channels that they will bypass the traditional download preventions. So we have checkpoint solutions, as we see in the slide, relevant for this as well, including mobile security. This is one example that we see a vulnerability as a 0-day, while checkpoint research discovered shared indicators by our threat cloud and protected in what we call multi-vector solution against ransomware. So this was a case that we see that having checkpoint was ahead of the industry. To conclude, it's not enough to have solutions against ransomware. It's very important to have correlation events and attack visualization together with EDR, and this is what we call managed detection and response. These advanced tools will allow us to detect and prevent ransomware attacks while they are in the beginning of the attack stage. To conclude, as I was mentioning before, we have Harmony endpoint to secure the endpoints and servers and mobile phones, the assets. Then we continue with CloudGuard to deliver visualization and prevention on cloud assets, and the quantum gateways that are protecting network and users within the organizations. All of this together, sending feeds to our threat cloud and being orchestrated by our unified management and security operations called Horizon. So hopefully I will be wrong with my prediction that ransomware will continue to be one of the major pillars in cybersecurity in 2024. Be safe, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Johnny, who's predicting that ransomware will become much more evasive and attacks will continue to surge in 2024. And now into our next prediction.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. This is Pete Nicoletti. I'm one of the global CISOs here at Check Point, a 2.5-year veteran at Check Point, celebrating 30 years at Check Point, of course. But I've been in IT for about 30 years and 22 years as a CISO. And so my predictions actually mean something. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I've got 3 good ones for you today for 2024. They should give you some perspective and help you as you plan your budgets and plan your thoughts on how to attack 2024 and stay secure. So the first prediction I have is about artificial intelligence. We've all seen it grow and incredibly fast. It's the fastest developing technology in the history of the human race, with over 100 million users, faster than any other technology. But of course, whenever there's technology for good, the bad guys use it as well. And what I'm predicting is something that we just started seeing. Checkpoint Research just started pointing it out, is the criminals are using unregistered and unguardrailed AI tools and engines that are not subject to the laws and guidance, the guidance that just came out today that 16 countries signed. Criminals don't pay attention to gun laws, and they don't pay attention to artificial intelligence guidelines. So we're going to see what I refer to as ghost guns, unserialized guns used in the AI gunfight. So here at Checkpoint, we have to bring a bigger AI gun to the gunfight, and we do with our threat cloud and all our tools. So be ready for this. We're seeing it with phishing and code creation. The next prediction, and this is another one, this is a battle that we're currently losing. Checkpoint Research is pointing a 12-13% uptick in ransomware in this last quarter. We're losing the battle, folks. It's now some consider the 3rd largest economy in the world. And the franchise method is the way that the criminals are succeeding. So we have to break those models by not paying them and not giving them money to succeed. So whether it's the code creators, the foothold gainers, the negotiators, we have to prevent this by putting in anti-ransomware tools, whether it be our email tools, our endpoint tools, our firewalls, and whatnot. We have to stop this bad trend that is going on. And then finally, my third prediction. This is something that we're seeing a lot of here in 2023, and I expect it to actually increase in 2024. We're seeing cloud service providers' native tools being compromised or circumvented. What we really want to see, and what the industry needs to see, is advanced tools that layer on top of cloud provider native tools that provide additional layers of protection, whether it be automated fixing of tools, whether it be posture checking, whether it be all the advanced capabilities that tools like Checkpoint provides that the cloud service native providers don't have. So in summary, those 3 things are my predictions for 2024, and I hope that helps you prepare for your budgeting and your success in your security program for 2024. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much to our amazing global CISO for the Americas, Pete Nicoletti, who didn't give us one prediction for 2024. Pete gave us 3. The first about the use in AI by criminal gangs, and of course working outside regulations and justice. The second being the franchise model, or ransomware as a service, driving an increase in ransomware. And the third being about vulnerabilities within our public clouds and the need for much better enhanced security, like you can get from organizations such as Checkpoint. On to my prediction for 2024 now. I'm going to go slightly different. We're going to continue to see a surge in successful cyber attacks and data breaches. And this is going to deliver an explosion in a level of class actions, litigation, and criminality against the CISO like never seen before. We're in the era of litigation and class actions now. There is no doubt about that at all. Capital One, Morgan Stanley, Equifax, Uber, Home Depot, UKG have all actually had breaches and have all paid out money on the back of them. In fact, some have been quite big. If you look at the levels that Equifax paid, 575 million was paid on the back of that class action alone, and they're still paying out money on the back of that. It's interesting to note here, class actions are not just huge values. Some small organizations will be impacted as well, and they will be expected to pay out and settle small amounts of millions in order to actually satisfy shareholders and individuals that were being breached. Interesting one to watch out in 2024 and probably beyond as well is the one down the left-hand corner, which is the Progress software. And that obviously is connected with the MOVEit breach, and we've seen several class actions being raised already, and we expect to see into 2024 and 2024 how they're going to impact within that organization. So this is really concerning, this increase in data breach class actions. First of all, if we compare healthcare with the overall number of class actions, healthcare being the graph on the left-hand side, what we've seen pretty much since January 2021 is a slow increase in class actions, and then we've seen an explosion this year, particularly within the second half of the year. This is because of the number of breaches we're seeing within healthcare. It's the second most attacked sector that we have, and also the value of our clinical and medical data. On the right-hand side, we're actually now comparing, for pretty much the last 12 months, cumulative class actions, and what we can see is a near twofold increase from 2022 to 2023. Now, you may be asking, what's behind this rise in class actions? I think it's quite simple. I think it's vulnerabilities that are driving this. If we have a look at the CVEs from 2009 to 2022, we can see a steady increase in the level of CVEs. In fact, if we just look from 2017 onwards, we're actually seeing an 11% annual increase in CVEs. Now, let's put that into context. If you look at what the government Five Eyes report said that came out in August, they're actually saying that only 28% of attacks in 2023 came from 0 days or new CVEs. It's nearly 16% of all detected attacks actually came from 2022 CVEs. So now you can start to see the problem. Vulnerabilities, and we're not doing enough to actually protect against them. We're entering this age of data breach litigation also. If you look at Proofpoint's Voice of the CISO survey, this actually found that nearly 62% of CISOs now express concern around personal liability. I expect if we go back 5 to 10 years, that would be down into single digits rather than 62%. And of course, what's driving this? There's certainly two large use cases. The first one being the Uber case. And of course, as we're aware, that the Uber CISO was found guilty, but was spared jail time on the basis of that large breach. And of course, the issue there was that it was not transparent. They found that they tried to actually cover up that breach rather than being transparent. And then, of course, we have got pretty much a surprise in 2023, which was the action that was taken against both SolarWinds and also the CISO for SolarWinds as well, basically saying that they should have done better. There was vulnerabilities. They could have prevented that breach. And on the back of that breach, there was both a data and a financial loss. So, of course, we'll interesting to see how both of these go out. I don't expect to see only two such of these activities within 2024. I expect we'll start to see many more, probably per month. Also, the clock is now ticking. This is really interesting what actually happened within the last quarter, which was the ransomware gang, Black Cat Alf, filed an SEC complaint, basically saying that they had compromised and that they'd carried out a successful breach. But however, that breach was yet to be disclosed to the SEC. Now that's exactly the same within the UK here, disclosing to the ICO and of course across to the regulatory bodies within Europe as well and within Asia Pacific. This will now start to be used as a mechanism to put pressure on organizations that have been breached. What they can do is they can reduce the timescale that you would normally use to do any negotiation or to do mitigation, to pull back from backups and get your systems up and running. The clock will be ticking the minute they have breached the data, and they will actually use regulations in order to now say you've got 72 hours in order to be transparent and disclose this and move forward. Very much a game changer, I think, within CISOs and organizations trying to defend against breaches. Lastly, where there's a blame, there is a claim. And I think this is going to be part of the problem, which is, how do you actually know if the blame is within an organization or an individual? It could be a ransomware attack and an organization hasn't done anything wrong. But however, it could be a ransomware attack against a vulnerability. It could be a 2022 vulnerability that you were aware of. You decided not to patch, not to mitigate, or perhaps the board didn't give you the investment monies to actually push the levels of security to the levels that you knew they had to be. It could have come out of an audit where an audit actually showed you deficiencies or weaknesses. And again, the decision was made not to invest and not to do that. In some of these cases, it probably will be quite easy to say the organization should have done better. They were aware that there was a threat and they could have actually stopped that breach. And in many cases, if that is the case, I expect that it'll be quite easy for them to say, we can take a class action, we can take litigation because you should have done better within that job. It will no longer be something that you can actually defend against by saying, you didn't know. If there's a vulnerability, if there's a weakness, and it's out there, the job is to know, and the job is to secure that. Hope you've enjoyed the predictions from our 5 global CISOs. I'll summarize before finishing. First of all, we started with Vivek in Asia Pacific, who was talking about boards and CEOs and CIOs demanding much in the way of cyber resilience. He called it confidence in cybersecurity. He said organizations are going to demand that they can continue before, during, and after a cyber attack. So the increased levels of resilience are what they're actually looking for. Next, Marco, working in Zurich, Marco talked about the need for consolidation of technical controls and how that's going to start to become much more of a priority within InfoSec and organizations, rather than actually putting in lots of single point or best of breed. Then moving down to Johnny Fishbein, Johnny talked about the continued increase in ransomware attacks and the impact that's going to have commercially on organizations. And it wouldn't be a small impact. Johnny's talking about percentage impact, 2 times, 3 times an impact on organizations. And then Pete Nicoletti brought 3 predictions to the table. The first one Pete called as AI ghost guns, talking about the increase in the rise of AI to deliver malware and other type cyber attacks, obviously out with the regulations that are coming in. The second one he talked about was the increase in ransomware franchise models or ransomware as a service, drive up ransomware. And thirdly, he talked about the vulnerabilities within cloud securities and the need for much better than native security, such as Checkpoint's CNAP portfolio. I then brought it to a conclusion talking about litigation, class actions, and expansion within the criminality that we're actually going to see impacting, unfortunately, some of the CISOs that are trying to defend and make organizations more resilient. Anyway, I hope we've had a great 2023, and I hope you've enjoyed our predictions for 2024. Our next CISO Connections will actually be on the 8th of February, and we're going to be talking about offensive AI. We'll be bringing some experts to the table as well, talking about how they do it and talking about what this future of this amazing technology is going to mean for all of us as we try and modernize our organizations and defend against some of the attacks that Pete Nicoletti talked about. Please have a great 2024. We will see you on the 8th of February. Stay away from class actions, litigations. Try not to have any compromises across the festive period. And of course, please continue to reach out and keep in touch. Thank you very much.